All right, we're going to go through another video by Frank Turek on cross-examined, and I haven't watched this video yet, but I'm very curious to see what he's going to say because the title of the video is "Why Does God Allow Natural Disasters?" And it's a really good question because you have to battle God being omnipotent and omnibenevolent. That means He is all powerful and He is all good. So you have to ask yourself, if you can skate around the question of evil. Why does God allow evil? Because of the free will, this and that. But there's no free will involved here. It's natural things that are quote unquote evil. So if God could have designed a different world where natural disasters don't happen and thousands of children die in an earthquake, then He's no longer omnibenevolent because he did create a world where thousands of children can die in an earthquake. Now, if He couldn't create a world where there are no natural disasters, then He's no longer omnipotent. It's a conflict of interest here, so I'm curious to see what he's going to say about this.
Turek, we hear a lot, read a lot about if God were a God of love, why all the natural disasters? Why does it appear that God shows mercy to some and not to others? Mm-hmm. For example, the hurricane just went up the East Coast. We have family in the East Coast of Florida. We prayed that God...
No. So the question's already being asked poorly because it started off good. Why the natural disasters? But then he's changing it a little bit to say, why are some spared and some not spared? I guess the question is still okay, but now Frank has an angle where he can take it to where, say, well, God doesn't choose the natural disaster, which ones are spared and which ones are hit or, not spared. But the question is, why the natural disaster at all? Why is there a need for a volcanic eruption?
Would show them mercy. Mm-hmm. And yet at the same time...
See, it's not... I think Frank's going to take the stance that, well, it's not God showing mercy, it's just natural disasters taking course. But again, why the natural disaster in the first place? Why was this world created where natural disasters can happen?
It doesn't appear that He showed mercy to the people of the Bahamas.
Yeah, you're right. Excellent question, sir. In fact, we just did 3 nights ago now, we did a session at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. And the reason we went there, it's not just because I live there, but they just had a school shooting there just in April.
That's not a natural
so we wanted
disaster.
to go on the campus and minister to the students, not just me, but my friend Rice Brooks, the guy that wrote the book God's Not Dead, which turned into the movies.
Another shilling for a book.
There's like 3 God's Not Dead movies. And so we dealt with that a little bit there. Now that would be an example of moral evil. One human being doing something evil to another human being. You're asking the question about natural evil. And actually, Jesus answered those questions in Luke chapter 13.
Okay.
If you go to Luke chapter 13, Jesus talks about the fact that, do you think that the tower that fell on the people of Siloam, do you think that those people were worse sinners than others? That's a natural disaster, right? And what does He say?
Well, no.
He says, no.
A tower falling, no, it wouldn't be a natural disaster. We're talking about hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, tsunamis, things that don't have to happen. It could be a tower falling could just be easily some error that a human being made or whatever. And I'm not familiar with this story. Maybe we'll look into it. We'll go back and see what story he's talking about. But I don't think I'd say that that's a natural disaster.
No, but unless you repent, that will happen to you as well.
Okay.
The point here is we live in a fallen world, and things will go wrong. And
it's not. It's separate from the fallen world. Just create the world. These are things that just happen. So if there were no humans on this earth, all of these natural disasters, they would no longer be disasters, but all of these natural things that we would label as a disaster would still be taking place, humans aside. It's not the fallen world. Just create the world where there's no hurricanes. But it's an intrinsic part of the world. These are things that just happen. They're natural. So why not create it without them? create a world where these things do not happen.
Initially, this world got fallen because of our own sin, and things will go.
So is he blaming volcano? Wow. Okay. So this is the type of argument that is what I have to call absolutely disgusting, because I don't know where he's going to go with this, but as of this moment, he's saying that sin, and we live in a fallen world because of sin, and Frank Turek and many apologists, many Christians would have to acknowledge that being gay is a sin, and many Christians blamed Katrina, all these other natural disasters on gay people. If this is where Frank is going, then
wrong, even to people who are Christians. In fact, does God promise no harm will come upon Christians? No, of course not. In fact, he promises the exact opposite. He says,
persecution.
He says, if they persecuted me, they're going to persecute you. But take heart, I've overcome the world.
These apologetics are so... They range between awful and absolutely boring. Why would God create a world where volcanic eruptions can happen? That's the question I want to know. Why does he allow natural disasters? He still hasn't gotten to this at all.
Jesus, or Paul says, everybody who lives a godly life in Christ Jesus will be persecuted. Whether so that's through
God, Christians will be persecuted. Why does God allow natural disasters? I might get a little bit annoying with this, but I want to drive the point home. I'm going to keep asking this question until it's answered.
Other people, or maybe even through natural disasters or sickness or difficulty. Now you might ask, okay.
So is he saying Christians are going to be persecuted through natural... he literally said this, right? Christians are persecuted through natural disasters.
Whether that's through other people or maybe even through natural disasters or sickness or difficulty. Now you might ask, okay.
I would ask, why does God not allow natural disasters?
Section of the book Stealing from God on this, so I'm just giving you the real short answer.
For a book.
What possible good can come from a hurricane coming in and wiping a bunch of homes out and even killing people? We might not see any good that comes from it from our perspective, but that doesn't mean good. God can't bring good later. God. In fact, he promises to bring good.
So just bring the good without the natural disaster. This is not compatible with an omnibenevolent God. To bring tragedy, heartache, death to the world through natural disaster because something good might come out of it later, that's ridiculous. So he's conceding. He's not conceding the omnipotence. He's conceding the omnibenevolence. God is no longer all good. And of course, you could always use the excuse, well, you're just a human. You don't know what's all good. I can safely say that any type of event that requires death, not murder, but tragedy, death, no matter how good it is, it's no longer an all good event. I can say it. It's just not.
In Romans chapter 8, where he says that, let me get the verse down. It's 8:28. For all things work together for good to those that love God and are called according to his purpose. He doesn't say all things are good. They work together for good. You say, Frank, there's no way I can see how good can come from it. Of course you can't. Why? You're finite. God is infinite.
Yeah, okay.
In fact, I've struggled with this question a lot.
You're finite. God is infinite. Well, that's great. I will take my finiteness and say that any God that will allow natural disaster, to create a world where natural disasters can happen, is no longer an omnibenevolent God. I don't care what good comes from it. If it requires the bad first, it's no longer all good.
A lot, particularly when it comes to evil, not just natural disasters, but somebody comes in and shoots somebody else.
No. We're not talking about shooting somebody else. We're talking about natural disasters. Why does he allow... so it looks like he is now taking the stance... the first stance was that, well, look at the silver lining of the natural disaster. And now he's taking the stance that, I don't know. We can't know. We have little bitty brains, so we can't understand God. I think I understand it pretty well, in that he's just not omnibenevolent. He created a world where natural disasters happen.
Why would God allow that to continue? And I was at Michigan State. This had to be 10 years ago. I was going through the I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist material, and I knew there was a militant
Another
atheist
shilling
in the
for
audience.
the book. A militant
He
atheist.
sat
Can somebody tell me what a militant atheist is? Come on.
through the entire 2 hours.
I'll say it again. An atheist is somebody who is unconvinced that a God exists. So you literally saying a militant person who is unconvinced. Where does the militant come from?
Hour presentation like this. And I had some pretty good jokes in there.
Militant.
And he didn't crack a smile once. So I knew as soon as the Q&A was going to come up, he was going to have something to say. So I said, "Are there any questions?" He was sitting over there where you are right now. I said, "Are there any questions?" He said, "Yeah, if there is a good God, why doesn't he stop all the evil in the world?"
This didn't happen.
I said, "Sir, that is an excellent question. Maybe because if he did, he might start with you and me, because we do evil every day. If God wanted to end all evil..."
I mean, that's fine. Is he saying that that God would just kill them? Why doesn't he just stop the evil? You don't have to kill the person. He'd start just stop the evil. That's fine.
Evil in the world, he could just take us out. He could stop our free will.
Well, you don't have to do that. This whole notion that we have just free will, but do you have the free will to do something that you don't know about, or even that you do know about? Do you have the free will to fly? No, God didn't grant us that free will to fly, but he did grant us the free will to walk, the free will to wave your arms around. So there's things that you cannot do in this world that God could have granted you, and there's things that you can do because God has granted you. So all he would have had to do is just not allow the evil in the first place. It wouldn't have been a violation of free will. It would have been just as much of a violation of free will that I am not able to just zip off into the galaxies. These are things I cannot do because God has not allowed us humans to do them. He has not created us in such a way to do them. So just create us in such a way that we're not allowed to do evil. That evil is just something that doesn't exist.
Will. The reason there's evil in the world is because there's free will. Free will gives the possibility for evil, but it's the only way you can...
This is wonderful, but natural disasters have nothing to do with free will.
Have love. God could have created robots, but they're not loving beings. So he gives us free will and allows us to do with it what we will, knowing that he can redeem it. So let me go back to the last point, and then we'll come to your question, man.
And I'll just put this in here real quick, that God does not allow for free will. Because if God is omniscient, meaning he has all knowledge, he has knowledge of every single event that you're ever gonna do, then if he knows that on this day at this time you're going to drink a can of Coke, then on that day at that time you're going to drink a can of Coke. If he already knew you were going to do that, you don't have free will. He's already seen everything that's going to play out. God's omniscience and free will are simply not compatible. If he already knows every single step that you're going to take throughout your life, you have no option to take a different step than what he has already seen. There's no such thing as free will under the omniscient God model.
Although I might not be able to see how good can come from, say, a natural disaster, and some people will die in a natural disaster.
It doesn't matter if good can come from the natural disaster. I'm just going to grant this to Frank right now. Okay, so a volcano erupts and it wipes out, just levels an entire city. It kills 4.2 million people. But that volcano somehow created something good. It doesn't matter what it is. It created something good. You still had 4.2 million people die. I don't care about the good thing that came from it. Just do the good thing. Just make the good thing to come from it. Just allow that to happen without the millions of people dying in some insane natural disaster. I don't care what good can come from it. This is terrible apologetics.
Or get hurt. God can see it because he's outside of time. There's something known as the ripple effect. Have you heard of the ripple effect?
So God being outside of time makes just whether okay, so you also have an omnipresent. So you have kind of the four aspects of God: omnipotent, omniscient, omnibenevolent, and omnipresent, meaning he is everywhere at once. If he is outside of time, then how is he everywhere also? Which you could just say, well, he's also inside of time. So if he's inside of time, the fact that he is also outside of time is irrelevant. I would still say if he was outside of time, it makes no difference to any argument. But you're saying that he's, God is everywhere. God is all around us. God is in this room with me right now. Well, then he's inside of time.
It's also called the butterfly effect, that a butterfly, say, flapping its wings in South Africa can set a chain of events off that create a hurricane called Hurricane Dorian, right?
Probably not, but okay. What is this? Why does he allow it? Why does he allow it? Why does God allow natural disasters, Frank? Please answer this question. I mean, he did. To be fair, he did. He said, I don't know. I mean, to dumb it down, he's basically saying, I don't know why God allows for natural disasters. We just have to trust that it's good.
We can't trace how all those dominoes fall after that butterfly flaps its wings, but of course an omnipotent being could. It ripples forward.
Okay.
I can't see any good coming out of a baby dying. But maybe a baby dying today sets forth a series of events that are partially responsible to bring forth a great evangelist 500 years from now who saves millions of people.
Okay. I didn't know he was going to go into the example, but I just gave the counter example. Then just create the evangelist who's going to save millions of people without the baby dying. But again, why does God allow for natural disasters? I mean, his answer just has to be that he's not sure, or that something good might come from it. But then just do the good thing. It's no longer good. To be more clear, it's no longer an omnibenevolent God. It's no longer a God who is all good. If he allows a bad thing, a natural bad thing to happen, he's no longer all good. Period. Case closed. If he allows a natural bad thing to happen, he's no longer all good because he's allowed bad. Nothing to do with free will. Not saying that when somebody shoots somebody else that God allowed that to happen. Completely separate from that. He created a world where volcanoes erupt, hurricanes come in, tsunamis flood. He created this world. He's no longer all good because something bad has to happen for something good to happen. Terrible apologetics.
Can't trace all those ripples, but God can.
Great.
By the way, we see the ripple effect in the Bible, actually. In Joseph from the Old Testament, you remember Joseph? He's sold into slavery by his brothers into Egypt, and somehow he raises to prominence in Egypt.
What does
he
this
puts
have to do with
aside a
natural
whole bunch
disasters?
of grain. Then the very family that sold him into slavery leaves Israel to come to Egypt to escape the famine. And as soon as Joseph sees him, what does he say? You dirty rats, you're going to pay for what you did to me. No, he doesn't say that. What does he say? What you planned for evil, God meant for good, the saving of many lives. In fact, in that story...
Then just save the many lives. It's that simple.
The evil perpetrators did evil, and it rippled forward to help them later.
What about natural disasters? These are all things that are being done by humans. What about the natural disasters? God created this world where natural disasters happened. What about that?
Too often you don't even see that, right? You see it in that story. So the ripple effect enables me to trust God when I can't see the outcome.
Okay, yeah. So basically, you just have to trust that somehow a tsunami obliterating Japan is a good thing, and that's why God allows it, because somehow, some way, it's good. That's ridiculous. Come on, more terrible apologetics.